It started out like any normal day, until I noticed something strange on my security camera footage. A woman I barely recognized from our neighborhood, known by a few as the HOA's loudest voice, was creeping around my property. At first, I thought maybe she was just passing by, but then she walked right up to my solar panels and started smashing them. Yeah, you heard that right. She broke my solar panels in broad daylight, right there on camera. I couldn't believe what I was watching. Now, I've had a few run-ins with this so-called HOA Karen before. Nothing too serious, just your usual complaints about lawn length and mailbox color. But this was next level. The crazy part, she actually thought there wouldn't be any consequences. What she didn't know was that I recently installed a new high-res security system. Clear video, full audio, everything. And guess what? It recorded every single second. As I watched the footage, my jaw dropped. I knew I had to do something, but I also had to be smart about it. Reporting someone in the neighborhood can stir up a lot of drama, especially when the HOA is involved. But this wasn't just about me anymore. What she did was way beyond petty. And when the police got involved, well, let's just say she wasn't ready for what came next. So, here's a little backstory, just so you understand how we got here. I moved into this neighborhood about 2 years ago. Quiet place, nice homes, seemed peaceful. But not long after settling in, I started hearing stories about a certain HOA board member who took things a bit too seriously. She'd knock on people's doors about trash cans being out an hour too early, leave notes if your grass was too tall, and even called the city once over someone's choice of exterior paint. That's how folks around here started calling her HOA Karen. My solar panels had been a small victory. After months of paperwork, permits, and back and forth with the HOA, I finally got them approved and installed. They weren't cheap, and they were saving me a ton on my electric bill. But something told me Karen never really accepted that decision. She made little comments here and there, gave me dirty looks at HOA meetings, and once even asked if I'd ever consider taking them down to keep the neighborhood's look consistent. Still, nothing could have prepared me for what I saw on that footage. She didn't even try to hide her face. It was like she thought she owned the block. And the weirdest part, she had a clipboard in hand, like she was on some official mission. After seeing the footage, I couldn't stop thinking about that clipboard. It was almost like she thought she had the authority to be there, as if destroying private property was just part of her HOA duties. But here's the thing. I checked the HOA guidelines inside and out. Nowhere did it say anything about members being allowed on private property without permission, let alone vandalizing someone's solar panels. So why did she act like this was some kind of enforcement? I started asking around, quietly. A couple neighbors mentioned they'd seen her walking around other people's homes too. One guy down the street told me she'd scolded him for having a non-regulation patio chair. Another neighbor, who just had solar panels installed a few months before me, said she received 3 anonymous complaints right after they went up. Guess who's been leading the complaints committee for the past year? Yep. The deeper I looked, the more I realized this wasn't just about my solar panels. There was something going on beneath the surface. Karen wasn't just a nosy neighbor. She was using the HOA as her personal tool to control the block. And now, with my security footage as proof, it looked like she may have finally crossed the line. But I still had questions. Was she acting alone? Or was someone else backing her up? At this point, I knew I couldn't just sit back. The damage to the solar panels was bad. Cracks across 2 of them, wiring pulled out, pieces scattered on the ground like it was no big deal. And with the security footage clearly showing her doing it, I figured it would be an open and shut case. But something kept nagging at me. If she was bold enough to do this in broad daylight, clipboard in hand, was it possible she thought she was protected somehow? I decided to attend the next HOA meeting, just to get a read on the room. I didn't say anything at first, just watched. And sure enough, Karen was right there at the front, acting like nothing had happened, smiling, talking about keeping property values high and enforcing visual standards. It was surreal. Then, about halfway through the meeting, she mentioned something about reviewing unauthorized solar panel installations. My heart started pounding. Was this her way of justifying what she did? Trying to twist the narrative before the truth came out? I glanced around the room. A few board members nodded. One even muttered something about needing to revisit panel regulations. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a one-person issue anymore. If they were all in on it, or even just turning a blind eye, I might be facing more than just a rogue HOA member. And time was running out. Just when I thought things couldn't get any messier, I got an anonymous letter in my mailbox. No return address, just a plain envelope with a single sheet of paper inside. It said, "Check your HOA bylaws. Look at the revision dates. Some rules were changed without a vote." That one line flipped everything upside down. I hadn't mentioned the footage to anyone yet, so who sent this? And how did they know I was digging? That night, I pulled out the HOA documents I'd kept from when I first moved in and compared them to the updated ones on the website. Sure enough, the solar panel guidelines had been changed, quietly, just a few months ago. Before, they were listed as allowed with approval. Now they were labeled discouraged due to visual impact on neighborhood aesthetics. And the revision, it was pushed through during a closed-door meeting, one that wasn't on the public calendar. I checked the board member names on the approval. Karen was one of the signers. This wasn't just about personal vendettas anymore. It looked like someone had gone out of their way to rewrite the rules after my panels were approved, which raised the biggest question yet. Was this about control, or was there money involved? I started to wonder if there was a deeper reason she wanted the panels gone, and who else might be benefiting behind the scenes. With everything I uncovered, I knew I couldn't let it slide anymore. The next morning, I gathered all the evidence, the footage, the altered bylaws, the mysterious letter, and headed straight to the local authorities. I figured this was the only way to force the issue. If the HOA was involved in something shady, it needed to be exposed. When I showed the police the footage, they were shocked. It wasn't just vandalism anymore, it was conspiracy. They agreed to investigate further. But then the unexpected happened. A few days later, I received another letter. This one was different. It was from a lawyer, claiming that my security system was a violation of privacy laws. The lawyer threatened legal action for recording people on my own property without their consent, including Karen. It seemed like a desperate move to scare me into backing off, but something felt off. It was too polished, too calculated. That night, I took a closer look at the letter. As I read through the fine print, I noticed something strange. The signature on the letter wasn't from the lawyer's firm, it was a fake. Someone had forged it, and it didn't take long to figure out who. Karen had gone beyond just sabotaging my panels. She was trying to cover her tracks by intimidating me into silence. But that's when the biggest twist hit. I found out the real reason behind her obsession with solar panels. She wasn't just trying to keep the neighborhood perfect. She had secretly been working with a developer who was planning to buy up properties, including mine, to build a new high-end complex. And the solar panels. They would have decreased the value of the land for their project. The whole HOA scandal. It was part of her plan to devalue the area so she and the developer could swoop in and make millions. I couldn't believe it. As the authorities started putting the pieces together, Karen was finally arrested. But the worst part, I wasn't done yet. When I looked into the developer's past, I realized they had connections to some powerful people in the area, and it wasn't over. It was just beginning. With Karen's arrest, the immediate threat was over, but the ripple effects were just beginning. The investigation into the developer revealed even more shady dealings, including illegal zoning practices and bribery to push through their projects. The HOA board members who'd been complicit in Karen's schemes were also scrutinized, and it didn't take long before a full-blown legal battle started. But as the dust settled, I realized the most important thing wasn't the legal victory, it was the lessons learned. I had fought for what was right, not just for myself, but for my neighbors who had felt powerless for too long. The truth always finds a way out, no matter how many layers of manipulation are put in place. It wasn't just about solar panels or Karen's vendetta. It was about standing up for what's fair, even when the odds seem stacked against you.